and welcome to Cherry Pie Math. This video is going to go over parts of a circle. Hopefully it should be a pretty short video because, you know, it's just a circle and we're not going to go over like a ton of vocabulary. So first off, I want you to draw a circle. And if you have a pencil and a paper, it probably looks something like this. There's my beautiful circle that I just made right now. Before we go forward, I want you to think, are you sure this is a circle? Why or why not? So think about that in the back of your brain a little bit. So before we go forward, I want to talk about some old-timey geometry. So in other videos, when I talked about geometry, I mentioned Euclid's Elements. This here is a proof kind of from it. And you can see that they have like that little circle there already. And circles are actually a really big fundamental part of any geometry in the entire world. I have a few pictures here, like we have like a sundial, we have different proofs, and we have some Greek stuff here. When I was in college, I remember we learned about like the idea of pi, and that appearing in cultures all over the world, like not just in the Mediterranean where like Greek and Roman things and Egyptian things were centered, but also in like India and China. They had this idea of pi already. And circles are just a fundamental part, and circles and pi are so tied together, and I'm going to make another video about that later. But you can't have pi without circles, and you can't have circles without pi. It's very much relied upon each other. And like now we have computers that can compute pi for us, but like even back then they knew it was something around 3. And so they didn't, and like, let's be honest, when you're using a saw, you don't really have to like be super specific about the like length of whatever. You just have to have the saw and you just saw in there, right? But like that's where we get the concept of like angles in a circle as well. Maybe you've wondered why there's 60 minutes in an hour. Like the Babylonians were really big into like base 60, and it's just so cool. There's a lot more history that I could go into, which I'm not going to for the sake of keeping this video shorter, but if you look up like the history of circles, history of pi, it's super fascinating. Anyway, so the official definition of a circle is a shape where each point is the same distance from the center. And we have special words for this, which we're going to discuss in just a second. So it's a shape where each point is the same distance from the center. So if we look back to the one from earlier, I'm actually just going to scroll back here. This is technically not a circle because not every single shape, like if this is my center right here, not every single one is going to have the same distance. It's like roughly about the same, but if I was to do this and like my computer corrected it, you could see that if I had my center here, each thing would be the exact same distance from the center there, right? So there's some vocabulary that will help when you're understanding circles. First off is the radius. That's the distance from center to edge. Oh, I'm going to run out of space. Ah! So that's this part here. That's the radius. I'll actually just radius. The diameter is the distance across the circle. There's a little caveat. It has to pass through center. If it doesn't pass through the center, it's actually going to be called a chord. So a diameter would like be this part here, diameter, because it goes all the way across here. Pi is a ratio. And I don't know how much I want to go into this because, like I said, I'm going to make a whole video about pi later. So I'm just going to keep it at that for now. It's just a ratio. But it's an important ratio that you need to solve circles. So you can't find, most of these things you can't find in a circle without using pi. Circumference is the distance around the circle. So all the way around like this highlighted part here, that would be the circumference. Whereas the area is the 2D space the circle takes up. So area would be like all of this. If I was to shade in the entire circle, that would be the area, and it's a 2D space. If we're talking about volume, that's going to be either a cylinder or it's going to be a sphere, and that's a whole other thing. A chord is a segment within the circle, but it has to be touching, so both ends on the edge. So I can't just like be like, oh, a segment inside the circle, like that's a segment inside the circle. That's not a chord. This here up here is a chord because it touches the edge on both sides. So that would be a chord. It's not the diameter, although a diameter I guess could be classified as a chord. But a chord really is just any line where you're touching the edges of the circle, but it doesn't go through the center. And the center is the middle of the circle, I guess. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory. The middle of the circle. So, whoop-de-doo, this one's the center. Yeah, I really don't know why I made that into a vocabulary word. Like, you really should just know what the center is. So some questions to ponder about this. First, is a circle a polygon? So a polygon, by definition, is a shape with sides. Is a circle a polygon then? Or not? And how do you know? And then how would you find the radius if you knew the diameter? And are all circles similar? And similar means that you can perform a scale, like one is bigger than the other, but they're essentially the same shape. Like, if I have a picture of the Empire State Building, that is obviously not the Empire State Building, but they are similar because it's just a shrunken down version. So are all circles similar? Are they all just shrunken down versions of each other or sized up or whatever? So those are some questions to ponder. I'm not going to answer them. I want you to think about them. But some things to remember from this video. Pi does play a huge role in circles. I know I didn't talk a whole lot about pi. I kind of touched on the history a little bit. But they're so important, and pi is just so important that you can't, a lot of mathematics, especially later on, is just so based on using pi. So just don't be scared by the symbol. You're going to see this symbol, right? That's the symbol for pi. Don't be scared by it. It just looks scary, but it's not, it's just a number, right? Radius is more important than diameter, but you can find the radius from the diameter. So, and then another thing is that circles are fundamental to geometry. I'm going to do just a couple of videos about like area and circumference and some basic things about circles, but when you get into higher level mathematics, a lot of those proofs are based off of the properties of circles because each part is the same distance from the center. Anyway, I hope that helps and kind of gets you an introduction to parts of a circle.